Johnsonville sausage strips are strips of sausage that look and cook like bacon. They come in amazing flavors like original, maple, or chorizo. Now, you can transform your BLT into an SLT or turn your bacon cheeseburger into a chorizo cheeseburger. It's not bacon. It's Johnsonville sausage strips. And it's a meaty miracle. Find it by the bacon, even though it's sausage.
Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard. It seems like the week is already flying by for me. Maybe it is for you, because that means we're one day closer to college baseball again, right? It was so much fun last weekend in Baton Rouge. I spoke about this a little bit on Monday's show, but it's been so long since we played baseball games that really felt like they matter. That's not to say anything negative about the State Farm College Baseball Showdown, because I think that was a great measuring stick for us, and I believe the Bulldogs measured up exceptionally well, especially considering that we were without a couple of weekend starters. But be that as it may, it was great to go down there and renew an old rivalry and then get the better of them. I have had the opportunity, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show, but on Tuesday, I had a chance to catch up with former Diamond Dog shortstop Ryan Gridley, former Bulldog center fielder Jacob Robson, and former Bulldog outfielder, mostly right fielder, Elijah McNamee. You know him as Big Hit Mac. Talk a little bit about Arkansas. And every one of those guys kind of gets back to, it's difficult for them to stay on topic because they're so excited about Mississippi State baseball. I get on the phone with Gridley, and he's like, "Oh, you were down in Baton Rouge. How was it? I know those kids are so excited, and they're just so jacked." Elijah McNamee's like, "I never beat LSU, so I know what a big deal it is for us to get those guys." And Jacob Robson's in spring training with the Detroit Tigers, and he's like, "Man, how's the team look right now?" And I've been kind of keeping up a little bit. It's like, so that's one of the things I'm so serious about. One of the phrases that I hate to read, and it really irks me. I mean, as I've matured, there are some things that used to really bother me when I was younger that don't bother me today, because you kind of figure out what's important. But there is one thing that some of you guys use and some in the media use, and I don't really care for it. It's when people say former Bulldog Ryan Gridley, former Bulldog Elijah McNamee. Guys, there are no former Bulldogs. There are former Bulldog players, but there are no former Bulldogs. Because if you could have heard the glee in their voices as they spoke about Mississippi State taking 2 out of 3 from LSU in Alex Box Stadium, you would understand those guys are still very much Bulldogs. It's exciting to me to be in this position to be able to talk to these guys. As a matter of fact, I wrote a story about it. It's on Gene's page right now for free. It's called Arkansas, but Bulldog Baseball Series with Arkansas has been feast or famine. So we're going to detail that a little bit later in the show. But I wanted to share with you guys, just the exuberance from your former players, about the big weekend win. I've spoken to John Cohen, I've spoken to other people, and it's like, it's one of those things where when you win the first 2 and you can't close the deal on Sunday, it's like the worst thing in the world. It's like the worst feeling in the world because you understand how competitive the SEC is. And when you get a chance to go 3 games up instead of 1 game up, it really makes a difference. If you're 3-0 today, after a road series, knowing that you have 5 winnable home series available to you, then all of a sudden you go on the road and you just got to avoid getting swept. And the truth of the matter is, I look at the schedule and I think, we have a really good chance to win 2 out of 3 in every series. The one that gives me a little bit of pause, of course, is Vanderbilt, because they have been so dominant on the mound with their starting pitching, and they've proven to be able to go deep into ball games. But I believe that we can match up when it comes to frontline pitching. Yeah, Rocker and Leiter are outstanding, but so are Christian McLeod and so are Will Bednar. And so those ball games may boil down to 2-1, 3-2 type ball games. And so whoever makes the first big mistake may lose. And I believe we're going to be able to get them on Sunday. And so you begin to think, okay, if I can find a way to win a game Friday, Saturday, I got a chance to steal this series on Sunday. And we have gone to Nashville and won a couple series. If you go back and look at the history here as of late, we've been able to go up there and actually play pretty well. I seem to recall a Super Regional back in 2018 when nobody gave us a chance. We went up there and won that thing. So there's so much of this that is yet to play out. But we're not playing Vanderbilt this weekend. We're playing Arkansas this weekend. And hopefully before we get to Arkansas, we're going to play North Alabama. And so I say that to say this. Let's take a deep breath here and let's enjoy the season. You know, for many of us, it's like it's almost like, you know, when you play an old 80s video game, you know what I'm saying? Like you play and play and play. Like maybe you're playing Galaga or something, which I play regularly, but you play Galaga and you get up there and you're over 100,000 points and it's like you lose your third man and then you got to start over. And you just want to get back to where you were. That's kind of how it feels sometimes with some of our fans when it comes to Bulldog baseball. It's like, you know, we got so close, Steve, back in 2018 for playing for national championship. You know, we were in the winner's bracket and Oregon State had to beat us twice, and they did. And so then all 2019 comes along and we're like, listen, we got to get back to Omaha. I mean, it's Omaha or bust. And I agree with that. But let's not rush through the season without taking a moment to kind of take it all in. Because it means more to me this year, perhaps than it ever has, because of all that we lost last year. And you don't make that up. You don't. So let's take a deep breath. So you know what? We're going to worry about Vanderbilt when we get to Nashville. We're going to worry about playing Ole Miss when it gets Super Bulldog weekend. Right now, let's enjoy, hopefully, playing North Alabama and then getting together at Duty Noble Field with our biggest crowds of the season and playing Arkansas. Let's focus on that. And I say that for all of our collective mental health here, right? Because how many times do we get to the end of the year? You know, listen, we've never won a national championship, right? We can all agree on that. That's a factual statement. But we've had some great years in baseball. Now, I believe this team can contend. I believe this team will host a regional and probably be in a position to host a super regional if we take care of business. I think this is an Omaha team. And when you get to Omaha, you've got to have frontline pitching in order to win the thing. So I believe this team has what it takes to get to Omaha. And listen, I know there are some out there. Listen, we have some fans in our fan base that are so incredibly insecure. It doesn't matter what we do or how we do it or how many points we scored. They're going to find the one dark cloud and the clear blue skies. This is how it works. And that's not unique to Mississippi State. You know, we go down there and we beat a future first-rounder in Jaden Hill on Friday. We beat Landon Marceau, a guy that hadn't given up an earned run since last season. And we're complaining about the offense. Guys, the game of baseball, sometimes it requires you to manufacture a couple runs without the benefit of a hit to win a pitcher's duel. That's exactly what we did. It's exactly what we did. Now, not everybody is going to have, you know, two Friday, Saturday guys like that. You know, Ole Miss has got great pitching. Vanderbilt's got great pitching. There are a lot of teams out there that just kind of have good pitching. Matter of fact, most of the league has good pitching once you get outside of Friday. We face some really good arms. Probably not going to see anybody as good as we saw Friday, Saturday. And listen, Althoff pitched really well all year. Tulane's record doesn't really reflect that, but he's had a great year. Luke Albright for Kent State's doing really well. And so those big arms are preparing us for the rest of the ride. And what's going to happen here in a few weeks is, you know, we're going to go beat up on somebody and people are going to see, oh, the offense is finally coming around. And there's going to be a little bit of truth to that. But the bigger fact is we're going to start seeing some arms that are just really good. They're not elite. And we get in deeper in the season, you'll see some guys that are elite. You know, Gunnar Hoglund from Ole Miss, probably one of the most elite pitchers in the conference. I mean, how could you argue against that? You get a little bit deeper into that rotation, it's not so elite. I would submit to you that this Arkansas rotation is not elite. You know, so we might put up some runs this weekend. I don't know that they're going to be able to contend with our pitching. I think we've got a great chance to win the series, but again, more about that later. But rather than worry about offense against Gunnar Hoagland or Doug Nikhazy if he's healthy by then, or against Kumar Rocker or against Leiter. Let's worry about our offense against North Alabama first. Then we'll worry about our offense against Arkansas. And as we get into Friday, we'll preview that Arkansas series and hopefully be talking about a Bulldog victory. Don't know if we're going to play or not, but we'll get into that again later in the show. I'll share with you what I have learned. One of the things that I have learned that I'm quite certain of is that you're going to have a great quality meal at Bulldog Burger Company. 2 great locations to serve you right here on University Drive in Stark Vegas and on Gloucester Street there in Tupelo. Go by, have the spring rolls. They'll make you better looking. I don't care what your friends tell you. It's science. It's true. You have spring rolls, you're better looking, and everybody that you see is better looking. Has that impact on you. Get that chocolate shake to go. That's one of the things everybody says, well, I'm ready to go. I'd love to have dessert, but I'm ready to go. Well, you can take it with you at Bulldog Burger Company. When you get about halfway through that meal, just go ahead and let your server know, hey, listen, we're going to get a couple of chocolate shakes to go when you bring the check. So new items on the menu, as you are aware by now, the full of bologna burger that's loaded with protein, the grilled chicken club, and it's a winner. And just so you guys know, Roy Spotify Samante, had the tuna burger in Tupelo over the weekend. He goes, Steve, I can give it the Roy Samante thumbs up. Said it is absolutely delicious. Go by, check them out. You'll be glad you did. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people in Starkville and now Tupelo go to meet. MEAT. All right, let's talk a little football. How about that? Football, we forget sometimes. We get so caught up in everything else. Hey, it was baseball season, and men's basketball still playing. We're 3 practices into spring football. We had a chance to speak with some players and coaches on Tuesday night. We'll get Mike Leach a little bit later in the week. So, Coach Phelps, Jeff Phelps, who I thought did a great job coaching last year. And I was a little bit worried about defensive line recruiting the early part of it, but it ended up going really well, right? All's well that ends well, right? We get Trevon Marshall. I think he's a little bit of a developmental guy. You get Randy Charlton, transfer out of UCF. You get Dante Anderson. You get Ty Cooper. I mean, hey, I think you look at the finished product and you say, you know what, hey, this is great. There were a lot of us, including myself at times, we were ready to judge Jeff Phelps when it's 2 minutes into the third quarter. But Jeff put together a good close, ended up getting a great class. I'm excited about that. Also gives me a little confidence in Jeff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know what, maybe I just need to just pump the brakes a little bit and let the guy operate. Jeff says Randy Charlton actually working at defensive tackle, which is interesting to me. He was a guy that was basically a weak side defensive end there at Central Florida. We signed him expecting to bring some pass rush. They're sliding him inside. They like the fact he's a quick twitch. They like the fact that he's a guy that can get in there and beat people on the interior, and he's got the size to be able to handle the rigors of interior line play in the Southeastern Conference. Now, the question that I would ask myself is, is that what we need him? Jeff knows better than I do, right? He knows his personnel. But when I began to think about Cam Young, and some of you have seen the pads popping video released by Hell State Marketing, and you see Cam Young and Dollar Bill out there locked up like a couple of horns on a mountain range, that stuff excites me, man. That really fires me up to see that stuff. Bob Shoup told me right after Mississippi State signed Cam Young, he said, Steve, Cam Young is going to be the typical Mississippi State defensive line success story. He said he's going to be a guy that's going to come in here with a country-strong kid with a good work ethic that doesn't have a lot of refinement when it comes to skill set. He's not a guy that's going to know a lot of technique. He will develop over time, and then all of a sudden when he's a senior, everybody's going to be like, how did Mississippi State get this kid? You're beginning to see that forecast come to fruition. Cam Young played exceptionally well for State last year. There was sometimes he had to get in there and play a lot of snaps because we were a little bit shorthanded on the interior after Nathan Pickering opted out. And then we had some guys kind of get banged up, and there's Cam out there just, laying people out. Cam Young is a rising star at Mississippi State. So you got Cam Young. You know what you've got in Jaden Crumedy, who was our best interior defensive lineman last year, bar none, in my opinion. You may disagree. You might like Cam Young a little bit more. And then you throw Nathan Pickering back into the mix. Now, Nate's still kind of making up for some lost time. Okay, now he wasn't just sitting around playing video games. I mean, the guy opted out, but he continued to kind of work, physically to kind of stay in shape. But, Pickering comes back around, and, you begin to look at these numbers and you think, hey, we've got some depth on the interior. And the fact that we're willing to move Charlton to the interior tells me we feel pretty good about some of these ends that we have. Now, we know what we're going to get with, Dante Anderson. He's a guy that's going to be, a 7 technique guy on 3rd and 15. You put him out there and just say, son, go get the quarterback, and he will. And if you go watch this film, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. This is a guy that's got to get bigger and stronger before he's able to kind of line up in a 5 technique and really, take on an offensive tackle and a running play. But I think as a freshman, he's a guy that you can get out there in obvious pass rushing situations, just tell him to go tackle the quarterback, and he will. You know what you're getting in Ty Cooper? I know some people think he may slide inside, and he might. I kind of like him as a 5 tech. I think he'll sit out there maybe as a strong side defensive end. But you've got some reinforcements on the way. And then when you begin to factor in, it looks like King Ani is actually beginning to make some hay. And I'll be honest with you, I had some people tell me last year they didn't know if he'd ever play here. And so all of a sudden, if he's a guy that can come in and give you a few snaps there, maybe he gives you 15, 20 snaps a game, all of a sudden you've got value in that scholarship. We hadn't gotten anything from him so far. People forget, he showed up on campus. He needed basically 2 major surgeries when he got here. And kid showed up, with a good attitude, but he was kind of damaged goods. So you spend a year getting him healthy, and then last year you kind of spent him a year getting him acclimated, and now maybe he's able to contribute something. Maybe he's down a depth chart a little bit, but Phelps mentioned him as a guy that was really kind of a factor at defensive end. Now, you know what you've got in Jack Harris and Aaron Odom. Both of those guys showed some flashes. Aaron Odom was a guy, if you recall, there was a lot of anxiety and heartburn invested over Aaron Odom when he, quote, flipped to Louisville. And I think the only people that thought that was real were the Louisville people and Ole Miss people. It wasn't real. But let's be honest, Aaron Odom has not lived up to his billing at this point. Did show some flashes last year, but when you look at that defensive end position, this is where it gets a little bit dicey. You feel good about the interior. You bring back Aaron and Jack that got second-team reps last year. You put Ty Cooper in the mix there. You put King Ani in the mix there. You put Dante Anderson in there, and so you begin to think, okay, we're young at the position, but we have some athleticism. I wish we had some older guys there. I really do. We're really going to miss Kobe and Marquise from a leadership standpoint. But I trust Jeff Phelps. That defensive front last year, despite being shorthanded at times, was very, very good. And some of that is a product of the scheme. And so I'm not going to sit here and try to do Jeff Phelps' job for him. But it was encouraging to hear him speak and to kind of talk about how some of these things are kind of shaking up for us. Football talk is this time of year is exciting. I mean, it really is. And I think a lot of it, too, is because I think most of us feel like we're going to take a step forward this year. I know we all hope that. I think most of us actually believe that. And I'll tell you, the reviews that I have gotten, I've spoken to, 5 assistant coaches now. It's like, hey, we're a much better looking football team today. Much better looking than we were even late last year. We didn't get the benefit of spring practice last year. Tyson Brown done a great job. And everybody you speak to involved with Mississippi State football just speaks so glowingly of Tyson Brown. This is a guy that knows what he's doing. He's always on the cutting edge of things. Workshop some things, talk to other people, always adding some things, kind of tweaking some things, making sure that he's getting the most out of those workouts for your football players. Multiple coaches tell me we're in better shape now than we were at any point last year. Guys made a lot of substantial gains in the weight room January, February. Now they're out there making it all happen. That's why Midnight Maneuvers was so much better this year. Number one, we kind of knew what to expect. We understood what the standard was. But also, too, we're a bigger, faster, and stronger football team. Linebacker is one of those things, too, you look at and you begin to say, okay, all right, what are we going to do now that Errol Thompson's gone? And that's a great question. Yeah, there was some.
Right now, savings goals might feel out of reach, but with the U.S. Bank mobile app, we can help you put money aside in a way that won't make you miss it. Using personalized insights, you can save in a way that works in real life and all the curveballs that come with it. So let's get you closer to whatever it is you're saving for. Because at U.S. Bank, even our tools are smart enough to put people first. U.S. Bank, We'll get there together. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Hope that Errol might reconsider and come on back, but I don't know how realistic any of that was. I think Errol's a guy that's been in school forever, ready to get out and go make a little money. And listen, I think Errol's gonna get drafted too. Now Errol's not gonna be a guy that's gonna wow at the combine with a 40. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's not gonna go out there and run a 4.48. He's not gonna be the talk of the combine like Montez Sweat was. But when you put the tape on, you see a guy that's always diagnosing plays, always getting there, taking good pursuit angles. You know, his film will speak better. His college production will speak better than maybe his testing numbers will. And I understand the NFL draft is an analytics game, but somebody out there is going to take a chance on Errol Thompson just because of the fact that he is just a good football player. Smart guy that won't embarrass your franchise. I mean, this is just one of those guys you look at and say, you know what, I want this guy on my team. I want this guy out there making tackles for me. I want this guy out there making everybody around him better because that's who he is. So we're going to miss that from him this year. You know, Nathaniel Watson's the guy, and it's interesting too. I'm going to be real candid with you guys too. Nathaniel Watson wanted to play wide receiver in college. Even though he was committed to Mississippi State, he was still kind of out there talking to other schools, and you're kind of curious to find out if they let him play wide receiver because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted the ball in his hands. There are a lot of people out there that could have told him, yeah, you can play wide receiver. And then a week into practice, they say, hey, listen, why don't you go with Coach so-and-so today and just work with him and see how that fits. And the next thing you know, the wide receiver coach not returning your text. If you don't think it happens, you're kidding yourself. It happens all the time. I remember Russell Shepard. I'll chase this rabbit trail here for a second. Russell Shepard was considered by many to be the number one quarterback in America. I put his film on, and I guess there was 8, 9, 10 minutes of highlights, but he never threw the football. He's out there running his own read and running by people and very impressive in what he does. Very hard to corral in the open field. Could make anybody miss. Could cut on a dime, as they say. But he couldn't throw the football. Then we have him, I guess, I think it was the Under Armour game that year I was at, and there's Shepard out there, and they call him Shep. I guess he was committed to LSU. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, Shep's going to do this and Shep's going to do that. And Shep couldn't throw the ball out of bounds. He was awful. He was absolutely awful. LSU recruited him, told him that he was going to be a quarterback. That's the same year they signed Chris Garrett, you may recall, out of Tupelo. Russell Shepard spent one day of practice at quarterback. One day. And I get so tickled, some people get on the message boards and say, oh, well, everybody else is recruiting him as this. Guys, he can't throw the football. Unless he's going to go play at Army or Navy and run a triple option, you got to be able to throw the football. And so when you hear and see these things, kind of understand there is some gamesmanship behind all this. Sometimes you tell people what they want to hear until you get them there. Is that disingenuous? Absolutely it is. But sometimes, especially when it comes to certain athletes, I mean, you get to say, listen, we think that you're this, but you know what? Come prove us wrong. We'll give you an opportunity to go work at receiver. If it doesn't work out, we'll go play linebacker. You agreeable to that? Okay, yeah, coach, I just want a chance. Okay, cool. Go out there and run the post. Okay, you dropped it. Okay, let's go on over here with linebackers. That's how it works. I mean, and you're just kidding yourself if you think that wasn't the plan all along. Just how it all happens. And then with the transfer portal, maybe people have to be a little more honest, but we'll see. But Nathaniel Watson really wanted to play wide receiver because he liked being impactful in the ball game. It wasn't that he was greedy or selfish. It's just, he enjoyed playing wide receiver. He enjoyed getting in the end zone. Of course, he wasn't fast enough to play wide receiver in this league and a little bit too bulky. Not quite quick twitch enough, as they say. And so Buki gets here. And I remember reading the reviews, it's like, I laugh at this stuff too. It's like, if I didn't go to practice, I wouldn't know any better, right? And so right now we're locked out, so we're kind of dependent on secondhand reports. But I read all these glowing reports about how Watson's looked in practices that I attended when he was a freshman. And there were times, he didn't even know the drills. And so this is a guy that's an athlete kind of getting by on his athleticism. He had to learn to be a linebacker. And I know some people were saying, he's probably going to play as a true freshman. There was no chance of him playing as a true freshman, and that wasn't fair to him. But you know what? Now that he's had a couple of years to learn the position, learn the nuances of playing linebacker, all of a sudden now we've got something. You know, he was a developmental guy. You sign the athlete, and then you plug in play and put him in the right thing, and you teach him what you want him to know. You know, people forget. I mean, I'm going to look his numbers up right here. There were some games last year that he was the leading tackler on this team. But it was always a work in progress. You know, it was never a thing you looked at and said, oh, yeah, this guy's definitely going to be a great linebacker. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Des Harris. You know, Des Harris is another guy that had never really played defense, had to kind of be talked into playing defense by Jeff Collins. That's kind of the same situation with Buki here. All right, so 2020. So let's back up a second here. 2018. Nathaniel Watson. This is the year that some people were saying, oh yeah, he'll play as a true freshman. He had 3 tackles. 3. So okay, you had the red shirt year. You bring him back. 2019. 2 tackles. Then all of a sudden, you bring Zach Arnett in. He gets a new lease on life as a player in many respects. Now all of a sudden he's got 38 tackles in a season. And you could tell last year he was playing with a lot more confidence. You could tell he was a guy that knew what he was doing. He was fast to the football and violent at times. Guys, we played Missouri. Buki Watson had 13 tackles. 13 tackles. And, of course, that's after Errol Thompson got ejected for the game on that targeting penalty. It was somewhat questionable. So he's got to go in there basically live without a net and kind of lead this defense, and he gets 13 tackles. Ole Miss, he has 8 tackles. You know, this is a guy that, remember, 2019 had 2 tackles. He made a tackle in every game this year. Didn't play a whole lot in the Armed Forces Bowl because Errol Thompson's back. And so my point being is that when he was given the opportunity to play some substantial snaps this year, played pretty well. But he wasn't this surefire linebacker prospect out of Maplesville, Alabama. That just wasn't who he was. This is about the development from your staff and his ability to commit to the process and work hard to get better. And so now all of a sudden Errol leaves and you're like, okay, well we've got a guy right here already that has played all 3 linebacker positions because he was kind of the jackknife linebacker and he had to learn. And so that's the guy that I think you can be excited about. Probably will be the guy in the middle, I think, when it's all said and done. I know Deshaun Page was a guy that was kind of signed with those ideas in mind, but he's getting some work at both Mike backer and out there on the strong side. But he's not a guy that's, when you begin to kind of work this thing out, he's not going to be a Sam backer. He's played some strong side, played some weak side. But again, you look at what Buki Watson did, and you bring Deshaun Page in. I think he'll be a little more productive earlier in his career because he is from a defensive background. But I think you can start to feel a little bit optimistic about the linebacker position. You know what you got with Aaron Brule. No question there. One of the best pass rushers in the nation. And so then all of a sudden you begin to think, okay, well, Watson showed some real flashes last year. He's willing to get in there and put his nose in there and stick somebody. So I think we have reached a point where we can feel pretty comfortable about Buki Watson. Guy's going to play football for us. You got Jet Johnson out there. He's another guy, too. Probably needs to make a jump this year, right? Jet's a guy that played sparingly 2019, played a little bit last year on special teams, was able to get some action out there in some ball games last year. Need him to step up this year. Really do need him to live up to his potential. But for some guys, it takes a little while, just like we see with Watson. It took a little while to kind of get him going. And then Jet and Buki were classmates. So that front 7, if we can shore up those defensive ends, I think we can feel really good about that. Now looking at the secondary, Had a conversation on Tuesday night. The Cambrion and Richardson looks to be the solid number 3 at corner right now. You know what you got with Martin Emerson. You know what you got with Emmanuel Forbes. And everybody says, well, Steve, we don't really have any depth. And that's true. But you're beginning to see the depth kind of be built behind them. The Cambrion and Richardson is a freak of an athlete. He's a lot like Emmanuel Forbes and actually probably a little bit thicker. So when I hear that the light is coming on for him, that's exciting to me. Because when I think about what Darcel McBath did last year, you lose Jerry and Jones, and some people would say, well, Steve, that was okay. He wasn't very good. How much better would he have been if he'd have been with the same university and the same teammates for 2 years? You don't think that would have made a difference? I believe that it would have. You have 1 year here, then you leave and you go to Florida State, and you got to start over with a new staff, a new scheme, new teammates. Not to mention, look at the jump that Martin Emerson made last year. You don't think Jerry and Jones could have been at least 70% of that? He may not have been as good as Martin, but to think that he would not have improved is a little bit short-sighted and probably a little bit sour grape. Jerry and Jones thought there as a true freshman. The guy got out there and competed with a broken hand. The guy said, he's tough. He wanted to win. Things didn't go well, which led to his ultimate departure. But you lose Jerry and Jones. Then you decide to go with Esias Ferge, and that didn't work out. And Ferge is a guy, too, that's very competitive. He'll probably be the number 2 on the other side. But, we started him, and we had some busts, which opened the door for Forbes, and then he ended up just taking it and running with it, and running with that turnover chain all the way to the end zone. Put a handful of pick sixes on the books for you. He's already tied the school record in pick sixes. And so when I hear DeCambrion and Richardson is stepping up, now all of a sudden I think, okay, I know that I got 2 All-Americans on the front team. I got a serviceable guy in Ferge on the second. Now all of a sudden I'm rounding this thing into form, and I got DeCambrion and Richardson, a guy that we believe we absolutely stole late 2 years ago. Now all of a sudden I don't enter the fall thinking, okay, we got to build a depth chart. I think it's already there. Now it's about just kind of refining it and kind of getting some guys behind him. Jaylen Reed's a guy that, we signed. We dropped him. We signed him. He's been basically a solid special teams guy for us. Hadn't played a whole lot. Maybe he ends up being, a depth guy or a career special teams guy. I don't know. We'll see. And I hate it because I really like Jaylen Reed. But again, it's in the Boy Scouts, right? I mean, it's not like, well, let's get this kid a chance because I like him. You got to go out there and produce. So I'm not as worried about corner right now that I was last year. Because let's be honest, going into last year, the only guy we had that we thought we could count on was Martin Emerson. Because you remember Tyler Williams quit. I mean, we can put whatever label on it we want, but he quit. And so you lose Tyler Williams, you lose Jerry and Jones, and then you're basically forced to play a career special teams guy and a freshman opposite Martin Emerson. Martin Emerson played more defensive snaps than anybody on the Mississippi State football team last year. Maybe we don't give up a touchdown against Auburn if he's able to get a blow earlier in the ball game. I don't know. He also should have been in cloud there instead of being impressed, but, I digress. But my point being is that our depth at corner in the spring is better than it was in the fall last year. So we're ahead of the game there. Then you begin to think about safety, and listen, I keep hearing that Jalen Green is an absolute freak. And I laugh, to be honest with you, I laugh at some of these people that say, Jalen Green lived up to the hype. Sometimes guys just need another situation. Sometimes you need a reset. Jalen Green's getting that here. He also was with the coach who recruited him to Texas, in Jason Washington. You think Jason Washington would have went out there and got that kid if he didn't believe he could play? You don't think Jason Washington still has friends in Texas that can say, listen, hey, Jason, we missed on this kid. He's an absolute turd. You don't think that information would be available to Jason Washington? Of course it would be. You go out and get Jalen Green because you know what he can be. And maybe he's underutilized there. Maybe he is unhappy there. Maybe he and the position coach don't get along the way he and Jason did. I don't know. But I can tell you the returns on him from spring have been really good so far. They tell me that he absolutely just exploded in midnight maneuvers. And that he was a guy that really worked hard. And kind of unfamiliar with the drills in the beginning, but as this thing began to wear on, he became one of the guys that people looked at and say, hey, that's the guy to watch. That excites me. Colin Duncan got better as the year went on last year. I think we can all agree to that. Colin Duncan was a guy a lot of people kind of questioned Mississippi State signing in the first place. Thought he might be a G5 guy. I don't believe that. I think he's another guy, too, that his best football is ahead of him. Fred Peters, of course, kind of working back through. Mike Leach told us last week there's nobody that was out. There are some guys that are limited. They're going to be careful with Fred. Fred's got a chance to play the nickel again. Fred comes back 100% healthy. I think we know what we got in Fred Peters. And that excites me. Dylan Lawrence, another guy around him back in the shape. And C.J. Morgan, I don't know how much that guy's going to play. It's a very massive knee injury he suffered against the University of Alabama back in 2019. And the fact that it's taken him over a year to get back into any kind of practice shape says a lot about how detrimental that injury was to his career. He's a guy that really benefits from getting this extra year, and I really hope that he has a chance to contribute. There are a lot of guys on our team that are good dudes. C.J. Morgan is among the best. Really hopeful things work out for him. I remember going over and watching him play in high school. Drove over to Shreveport, watched him play. And that jamboree, it was packed. And he was a star among stars. Did a great job. And so when I look at this defense, and one of the reasons I didn't want to talk about offense today is because I think we all pretty much know how the offense is going to shape up, right? Outside of a couple of guard positions, I think we know how the offense is going to go. We know who the quarterback is. We know who the running backs are, the wide receivers. I will tell you that I've got some very good news about Mekhi Polk. A lot of people talking big about him. Dave Nickel told us that Jaden Wiley has taken a jump. That Jaden Wiley's a guy too that kind of understands that consistency is the key. He's getting there. A lot of talk, of course, about this offensive line. Well, what are we going to do? We feel like we're in good shape at the tackle positions, right? I'm told that LaQuinston Sharp is a different person this year than he was last year. And I think some of that, too, is because he knows he has a real opportunity to start this year. Last year, you moved Greg Allen left guard. You had Darian Parker, a guy that, basically played every snap of the year last year, except when we called off the Dogs or whatever. But LaQuinston Sharp is the guy that's basically got a free senior year. And I'm told that he is a different person this year. And so that takes one of those guard spots up. Don't know if it's left or right. Don't know how Mason Miller wants to handle that. So then that would leave you basically one spot and then kind of filling out your two deep. And some people always say, well, Steve, what about Scott Lashley? Scott's still not back. He's still not 100%. And so they're being careful with him. But I just don't know what to expect from him at this point. Is he anything more than a solid two deeper? I just don't know. But I do think that we've got some guys there that can play. And LaQuinston Sharp, not the tallest guy, but he's got long arms. Got a good wingspan, can keep people away from him. He can kind of cover the gap between he and the tackle out there. But, most of our questions as a football team are on defense. And so I thought, you guys might want to hear some defensive talk. And so I talked to a few people and said, hey, listen, how's it look? We're off the record, of course. I'm just curious. How does this guy look? How does that guy look? Who stood out in practice? And so when I hear these things, especially about linebackers, I get excited. When I hear these things about corner, I get excited. When I hear this about Jaylen Green, I get excited. When I hear about defensive ends, I kind of hold my breath a little bit. When I hear about the interior defensive line play, I think, it's time to get excited. But I think really the storyline at this point for us, really as a football team, is what are we going to do at the defensive end position to generate some pass rush? To me, that is the one question we have to answer between now and opening day. I think we're going to be much better offensively. I think we're going to be really good at backer. I think we're going to be really good in secondary. What are we going to do at defensive end? And listen, there were some times last year we struggled to generate a pass rush unless we brought a blitz. And listen, Zach Arnett's a blitz-happy tactician out there. But there are going to be sometimes you're going to want to drop 7 or 8 guys into coverage and kind of get some pressure from your front. We kind of struggled to do that last year, especially after Marquise Spencer went down. So that's the question at this point that Phelps and Arnett have to figure out. Who can we put on the field that can play the run and generate a pass rush? So to me, that's really the biggest question about this football team as we get ready to finish up spring practice here in a few weeks. All right, time for the top 10 list brought to you by Dr. Robert Yarber. You guys have heard me talk about Doc several times. He's a Bulldog through and through. Known him a long time. Matter of fact, got a Bulldog from him. How about that? Exciting times. And so if you're a person that struggles with ear, nose, and throat problems, you got your answer today. Dr. Yarber is part of a great group of physicians called the ENT Physicians of North Mississippi. He is a guy that knows what he's doing. He's not some fly-by-night doctor that, is just trying to get you to come by and say hello so he can write you a script. He's trying to make your life better. So if you're dealing with pressure, pain around your eyes, kind of have a chronic stopped-up nose, like you have this allergy problem that never seems to go away, let the folks at ENT take care of you. Dr. Yarber, practicing out of Starkville and Tupelo. Let me give you the digits here, okay? If you're struggling with all this, stop trying to treat it yourself with over-the-counter medication. Get a solution once and for all and improve the quality of your life. The number to call is 662-844-6513. Again, that's 662-844-6513. That's 910 Stark Road in Stark, Vegas, and 618 Pegram Drive there in Tupelo. And if you're in Starkville and you have to have a minor surgical procedure, it's going to be right here at OCH. It's a county-owned hospital. So Dr. Yarber kind of feeding it back to our community. Again, that's Dr. Robert Yarber of the ENT Physicians of North Mississippi. Top 10 list today, and I went through this and I said, surely I've done this when Roy says I haven't. We've done the inventory, and I'm trusting Roy to keep up with it, as we go. I went through all those months and months of shows. Roy came aboard in October, so I went back. I want to give Gordon Griffin a little bit of a shout-out. Gordon Griffin went through the first couple of months and did some top 10 Spotify lists for me. And so I went behind Gordon, not really realizing how many of those early top 10 lists were like movies and TV shows and, cartoons and all that kind of stuff and dinosaurs and things of that nature. So we didn't do quite as much music in the early months of the top 10 list. And so I appreciate Gordon for his contributions and kind of getting that together. But I went back and I went from March all the way to October and put that list together and I gave it to Roy. And so I checked with him today. I said, listen, have we done Alice in Chains? Surely we've done Alice in Chains. Roy Jackson says, no, we haven't done Alice in Chains. In my heart, I feel like we have. But in my head, I said, you know what, I'm going to trust Roy. And if we have done Alice in Chains, it won't hurt for us to do them again. There's a couple things I want to say about Alice in Chains before we get started. Alice in Chains kind of entered my life. The album Dirt, which was their second album, really kind of entered my life like when I first really got sober. I had the Facelift album in high school, with everybody saw Man in the Box on MTV and everybody thought, man, these guys are super scary. I absolutely loved them. Thought they were great. And so after I got out of treatment and paid all my debts to society, the album Dirt came out, and it was a real game changer for me. I mean, it really was, because I had so much disillusion in life that some of their music kind of mirrored that. And there's a lot of recovery talk on that album. There's a lot of drug culture talk on that album. And so it kind of resonated with me. I was like, you know what, these guys kind of get it. These guys kind of get where I'm coming from. There's kind of like some commonality in these experiences. And so I fell in love with Alice in Chains. And went back and got the Facelift album again. My original copy was lost in the sands of time. And then went back and got Sap, which was the EP that kind of predated all that stuff. And so the Alice in Chains catalog became kind of the soundtrack of my life for a while. And so I wanted to share some things today about them because it's a very sad rock and roll story. Now, we're going to celebrate their music, but I think it's important to kind of understand that these individuals at that time were very, very sick. They were very, very sick. They were caught in the throes of addiction. Sean Kinney, the drummer, is probably the only one that has really had any semblance of a normal life. And he would probably argue against that. I think that's probably the lesser of the four evils. Jerry Cantrell, most of the lyrics that you guys are familiar with that many people attribute to Lane Staley were written by Jerry Cantrell. So a lot of that pain and misery and angst and longing and searching was really about Jerry Cantrell and his own problems with heroin. And then, of course, Lane Staley had his own issues with drugs and heroin and cocaine. And Randy Starr, of course, ultimately lost his life to addiction. And the Lane Staley story is incredibly sad. You know, Lane, very, very talented guy. And Lane had who he believed to be the love of his life, a young lady by the name of Devney, who was an artist. And eventually, Lane Staley turned her on to heroin, and she died of an overdose. He never forgave himself. He went off the deep end. And when they found him, I guess he was about 80 or 90 pounds. He was just a frail shell of himself. And Randy Starr had gone over and tried to reason with him. And Randy found Lane in such bad condition that he threatened to call 911. And Staley, of course, told him that, well, if you do, I'll never speak to you again. So he didn't make the call. And about 2 or 3 days later, Lane Staley was dead. And so Randy Starr never got over that. And ultimately, that drove him deeper into the abyss of addiction. And we lost Randy as well. And so there are only 2 surviving members of Alice in Chains left. And so we're going to talk a little bit about their catalog today. I wanted to share that with you because I think it's important sometimes that we understand that a lot of this stuff is not just an act. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that, you know, that with auto-tune and, 10,000 songwriters and that sort of stuff, that, they put together a real polished package. But some people are the genuine article. And that was the case with Alice in Chains. And when they wrote a lot of their music, it was kind of in their own misery and their own search for meaning. And so a lot of these songs mean an awful lot to me. And so I approach this list with probably more respect than I do most, just because I discovered them at such a fragile time in my own life. So here are the honorable mentions, and there are several. I could probably just read the rest of the catalog. I didn't make the top 10 and be okay with it. But we're going all the way back. Got Me Wrong is a great one off of SAP. Angry Chair. I know some people are going to think, Steve, how could you not put it in the top 10? I thought it was kind of overplayed. I love the song, but not as great as some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about. What the Hell Have I is probably one you're not quite as familiar with. It's on the Last Action Hero soundtrack, which was one of the last great rock soundtracks. Down in a Hole is a song that's been covered by just about everybody. Rooster is another one that didn't make the top 10 that I know it's one of your favorites. I think it's probably the most listened to Alice in Chains song, which kind of saddens me a little bit because I think there's so many other songs that are better. And then there's The Real Thing off of Facelift. I love that one. I love the swing in it. I think you'll dig that one. And then again, it was kind of the first single off the album that is self-titled, that is affectionately known as the Tripod album, which is a dog with 3 legs. And then Heaven Beside You was another one that got a lot of airplay. So here are my top 10 Alice in Chains songs, and 9 of the 10 are sung by Lane Staley. I had to get in Check My Brain because I really dig that track, and I think that's really the only really great Alice in Chains song since Lane's untimely passing. There are some really good ones. That's the best one in my mind in the post-Lane Staley era, and I just, to be honest with you, I can't bring myself to go see them. And maybe that's something I got to deal with. But I just don't feel right about going to see them. It doesn't feel the same without Lane. Off of the Jar of Flies album, I actually have a Jar of Flies tattoo. It's a song called I Stay Away. I think it's some of the best vocal work that Lane Staley ever had. And I'll be honest with you, I was kind of a reluctant passenger on the Jar of Flies bandwagon. There were a lot of people that were like, oh, this is so great. I really thought they were selling out at the time until I really gave the album a chance, because I was like, everybody's doing this unplugged thing, and they're just kind of jumping on that bandwagon, and these guys rock, and why would they do that? And they're doing these power ballads. But man, Jar of Flies is one of the greatest albums I've ever heard. I mean, it really, really is. I love that album. But I Stay Away, to me, it's just one of those songs that, like, as soon as I hear those opening bars, I just think, I know exactly where I'm at. Number 8 off the Dirt album is Rain When I Die. And I love the vocal on this one. I love the way Lane explodes on the chorus. It's also, too, that wah pedal they use, because it's like it's drop D tuning, I believe. They drop it down a little bit. They're tuned way down. So you get that darker, more ominous sound. Number 7, another great song off of Jar of Flies, and a really sad song in many respects. And I think if you've ever battled addiction or battled depression, or maybe you even contemplated suicide, and listen, if you have, let me encourage you to reach out and talk to somebody. But the song Nutshell kind of encapsulates a lot of those feelings. And I think that's why it's called Nutshell. It's just one of those things where you just feel like you can't go on. And so I've been there, and many of you have as well. And so that song kind of stands out to me. Number 6, off the Facelift album, an absolute rockin' tune that probably doesn't make the radio very often, but it's We Die Young. And it's about addiction. It's about people in rock circles, people that live fast and die young. Number 5, and this is a deep cut, and I would say the casual Alice in Chains fan probably has no clue about this song, but I absolutely love it, and it's number 5 on my list, and it's Bleed the Freak. I love the way the song builds, and I love the way that Lane really, really kind of attacks the song. It's like it's kind of restrained yelling. So we get into the top 4 here, and I think most people would agree these are the top 4. I know some of you are going to say, Steve, I can't believe Rooster didn't make the list. Get over it. Number 4 is No Excuses, and that was the first single off the Jar of Flies album. No Excuses that I know, and I love the vocal on that one too. Number 3, it's got to be Them Bones. And it's the opening track on side 1 of that Dirt album, and it just kind of sets a tone for the rest of the album. And one of the things I love about the Dirt album is it's just such a journey. That's the thing I think the kids miss out on today, is everybody's got these single-serving Spotify and iTunes music and that sort of stuff. But there is a journey that an album takes you on, and that's what I think Dirt does. I think it starts in a really dark place, and it ends in a more positive place at the end of the album. It is an absolute wild ride. And I think if you're somebody that says, you know what, I just want to kind of go get in a hole today, put your earbuds in, maybe close your eyes, turn lights out, and put on this Dirt album, and it's going to be an emotional roller coaster for sure. But I think you're going to dig that. Number 2, going back to the song that started it all, it's Man in the Box. And I love that tone. Oh my gosh, Jerry Cantrell's guitar tone. It's like it was unlike anything else that was being played at the time. It's like I laugh when these people say, well, Steve, the creators of the Seattle sound, were Nirvana and Alice in Chains, had sold millions of records before Nirvana even had a record deal. But I don't really consider Alice in Chains grunge. I know that sounds a little bit silly. I don't see them as a quote Seattle band. I think that probably puts them in a box that doesn't fit. But the number 1 song for me, and it is a song about recovery and addiction and relapse and about using partners and all that sort of stuff. But it's Would. If I would, could you? It's like I can quit, but if I can do that, could you do it too? And so there's like a partnership. And so I love that opening bars. I love how Randy Starr comes in, plays the bass, really kind of brings you in. It's a very dark and ominous song in the beginning. And the whole part about Into the Flood again, same old trip it was back then, that's all about relapse. And I've read several interviews with Jerry Cantrell over the years where he talks about what he was dealing with at the time. And the guy simply couldn't stay clean at that point in his life. And he wrote a song about it. And it ended up being a song that I think is kind of a song of empowerment from people that struggle with addiction. And so that's my top 10 Alice in Chains list. I know I went a little bit longer than normal on the top 10 list today, but it's because Alice in Chains is one of those bands that's so incredibly important to me. And there are some bands out there that write these songs that are kind of uplifting. But to me, when I listen to all this, it kind of reminds me of where I've been. And listen, I know there's so many other albums that have come out since then, and when black gives way to blue and all that sort of stuff, and where the dinosaurs are and that sort of stuff, where the dinosaurs are on. I can't remember the name of the album, but it's just not the same to me. I'm glad that we have had some new Alice in Chains music, so you younger folks can kind of go back and learn more about that catalog. But Alice in Chains is one of those bands to me that you just can't put a label on. They're just one of those bands that no matter what genre you try to kind of shoehorn them into, they're just bigger than that. They're just a great rock band that had an awful lot of problems. And unfortunately, there can't be any reunion because, 2 of the 4 main members of the band succumbed to addiction. And it's incredible, too. You go back and, like when they kicked Randy out of the band after the Dirt album, and they hired Mike Inez from Ozzy. And ironically, Alice in Chains had opened for Ozzy on the No More Tears tour, and then they hired him away from Ozzy. And he's still with the band. So there you go, top 10 list. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out, let me know. We can turn those things around pretty quick now that we have an inventory. We're not chasing our tails anymore, thanks to Roy. So find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. And if I like your idea, I just might use it. We'll give you credit on the show. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Campus Book Mart. I will be at Campus Book Mart on Saturday from 10 to 12. So if you're in town for the Arkansas series and you have not picked up your copies of Flim Flam, Stark Villains, or Alpha Dogs, you can do that day. You can come by and see me. I'll write whatever you want, whether it be a Father's Day gift, a belated Valentine's Day gift, or a Christmas gift for yourself. Maybe you wanted it and had it on your list. Maybe you'd been naughty, you didn't get it. You can come by Campus Book Mart, pick it up in person. We can visit for a minute, and you can meet Stan the Man. How about that? Campus Book Mart this Saturday, 10 to 2, right there in Stark Vegas. If you can't make it to town, you can order books, you can order Mississippi State merchandise, clothing, decorative items, baby stuff, anything that you need. Miss Kathy Brown's already got it. And so find them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays, and that is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that'll get you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any order less than $50, absolutely incomplete. Let's talk a little basketball. Now, I'll be honest with you. Way back in November, I didn't think we'd still be talking about men's basketball at this point. I thought we might be talking about a coaching search. I didn't think we'd still be playing basketball. I certainly didn't expect us to make the NCAA tournament. But no matter how we got there, the fact that we're still talking about men's basketball actually makes me a little bit happy. On the women's side of things, I was just kind of ready for it to be over. And then just when I thought the men's basketball thing was over, and all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, we made the NIT? We get to play again? All of a sudden, I got excited. And I think a lot of you guys did too. I give a lot of that credit to Ben Howland and his staff for kind of turning it around down the stretch. But there were some feelings that kind of got stirred up at me when I saw that video of Abdul Adu talking about what it all meant. And I thought to myself, I just wish this kid had one more game. Well, he's had that one game and he won it. And now because he won that one, he gets another one. So they're going to take on the Richmond Spiders on Thursday. And team's already back out there in Texas, getting ready to go. Excited for this ball game. I hadn't always been able to say that. I mean, listen, you guys that are regular listeners to the show, you understand that there have been some times I've been really down and been hard on men's basketball. But the way we've turned this thing around here late in the year, I'm beginning to have a little more belief. And now I'm hoping we win the basketball game. I'm not ready for it to be over. I know that sounds weird to say, and I never thought we'd be talking about it, and also probably thinking, I'll be glad that we're done. I don't feel that way. You can say, Steve, it's just the NIT. It's true. But, man, I just think about, look at what it means to these players. And look at what it means for next year. We're getting this extra playing time. We're getting some more experience. Let me run down this schedule. We did a little bit of this earlier in the week, but I won't waste a lot of time on this. But Richmond goes 14-8 this year. They take down Morehead State, and then they win at Kentucky. Win in Rupp in the second game of the year on ESPN, 76-64. They went through a stretch there where they didn't play because they had some games canceled or postponed, shall we say. They take down our friends Wofford. They beat Northern Iowa by 10. They lose on the road at West Virginia by 16. They bounce back and win at Vanderbilt 78-67. I think that's when we all kind of first realized that they were going to have some issues. Here's another big win. They beat Loyola Chicago 75-73. Turn right around, lose to Hofstra. They take down Davidson at Davidson 80-74. They lose at home to St. Bonaventure 69-66. The Bonnies, of course, just played LSU in the NCAA tournament. They beat URI 80-73. They win at George Mason by 20. They take down LaSalle at home by 6. They go on the road. They lost that game. They go on the road and beat St. Joe. You guys are familiar with St. Joe. They are a basketball school up there, to say the least. Then they went through another stretch where they had several games postponed due to COVID. They bounced back and take down St. Mary's 90-49. They lose to Virginia Commonwealth, beat DeCanes, beat UMass. They lose to St. Louis. Those are guys you should be familiar with. We just beat them ourselves. They lose at St. Louis 72-67. Then they lose to St. Joe's. They lose to Duquesne in the Atlantic 10 Championship tournament. And so when you begin to look at this thing, you say, okay, well, listen, they've got some big wins early, not so much late. They do make the NIT. They take down Toledo 76-66. Let's take a brief look at that, and we'll kind of move forward here. 76-66 winners. They're actually down at the half in that game by 6 and came back and then outscored Toledo by 16 in the second half. Absolutely dominated the second half. Looking at these numbers for Richmond, Jacob Gilliard played all 40 minutes, 18 points. Tyler Burton also pitched in 18 points. Nathan Ko, 15 points. And then they get 10 off the bench from Soleimani Kurasai. I apologize, Soleimani, if I mispronounced the last name. But you get 4 guys in double digits, you're going to win most of those games. And then Matt Grace goes 8 points himself. Tyler Burton, 10 rebounds. So not necessarily a great team rebounding night, but Tyler Burton does a good job. They pull down 34 total. Toledo pulled down 32, so just a net of 2 there. But didn't exactly light it up from three-point line, did the Rockets of Toledo, just 6 of 26. And then Richmond goes 8 of 20. They were 14 of 17 from the line. Didn't foul a whole lot, but they did get Nathan Ko out of the ball game. And, they had 2 guys foul out and still found a way to win the ball game. Pretty cool stuff. So this is, again, a game that I think we can win. Now, is this team capable of beating us? Well, yeah, anybody that's still playing in any tournament that you're in is capable of beating you. There's no bad teams playing at this point. We're not a great team either, but we're at least above average, and we're still having an opportunity to play. But when I look at this, I say, you know what? If I'm Ben Howland, all I have to do is point out to this team, hey, guys, they went on the road and beat Kentucky and Vanderbilt. We lost to both of those teams. We beat both of those teams, too. We split with them. So if they're capable of beating teams that have beaten us, they're capable of beating us. And so we shouldn't overlook anybody. Not that we could afford to with our record, but I think for Ben Howland, this is a pretty easy message to convey. That this is a team that is certainly capable of beating us. We're going to have to bring our best effort. And so you begin to think, okay, well, what happens, what happens if we win? What's next for us? After all this craziness that has gone on this year, and you have a chance to go have a pretty good experience somewhere. Those are the things that you begin to look at and say, you know what, we just didn't need to have an opportunity here to to play. We just wanted to be over with. But, if they're going to have this thing and invite us, we might as well play as long as we can. I hate these people with these pop-up ads. I'm sitting there trying to pull up some numbers for you guys. It drives me crazy. And so the whole tournament this year is played in Frisco, Texas. So there's not going to be the trip to Madison Square Garden that we ordinarily would have. And so that's a good and a bad thing. Okay, you don't have the incentive of saying, if we win this one, we get to go to the Big Apple. But you get to keep playing. And just kind of look at this bracket. It's, I haven't updated this thing in a while. But, on our side of the things, you begin to think, okay, you beat St. Louis, you beat Richmond. Can we get the Western Kentucky matchup? Can we get that to happen there in the semifinals? And that'll be played March 27th. So like we're going to play Thursday, we win. We're going to go right back around and play on Saturday. If we win, we play on Sunday. So we got a chance to close this thing out this week, and it's a pretty cool thing, the fact that we're still playing. And so I hope you all feel the same way. I hope that you're not ready for this thing to end. Because if they invited us and our guys have gone out there and played, for no other reason, you have to just think about Abdul Adu, man. I mean, how cool would it be for him to have a chance to continue to play just for a few more games? And I've had some people tell me it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that he comes back. I don't expect it. But I think maybe there was like some, I don't know, but people kind of caught up in their feelings saying, you know what, maybe he'll come back. We'll see. I don't expect it. But he can. He can come back. But I also think Abdul Adu is going to have a chance to play basketball for a long time overseas and make some money because he is a rebounder and a shot blocker. If you're looking to make your move to the Golden Triangle, look no further than our friends at Portico. Portico, a new residential development right off Garrett Road. So if you're coming off 82 and you turn on 12, like going towards campus, the very first right is Pat Station Road. That takes you right to Garrett Road. I mean, basically, it's just across Old West Point Road there. Behind the Chrysler Jeep dealership. Very easy to located to get to campus, there. Just 1.1 miles from campus. You could run to campus if you wanted to, if you're so inclined. I think you're going to be happy over there. 2-bedroom, 2 baths, 4-bedroom, 4 bath. They got a house that fits everybody. Whatever needs you have. If you're looking for that game day getaway, you can get it right there at Portico. And you know what? You might be able to Airbnb it. The weekends you don't use it. There's always something going on around town. There's always something that brings people to campus. If you're like me and you wanted to get to Starkville and stay, and that's what I wanted. And I'm here until they put me in a nursing home. I mean, that's my approach. And so if you're like me and you want to be here and be a part of all this, Portico's the way to go. You need more information, you can reach out to our friend Brooks Bryant. He's my friend, your friend, everybody's friend. Brooks a great guy, played baseball here at Mississippi State, and I believe in doing business with Bulldogs whenever I can. And he is absolutely a Bulldog. He's here for everything. He's not just a baseball guy. Brooks Bryant is concerned about everything. And so if you want to do business with like-minded people, you call Brooks today. 601-416-8075. And listen, don't delay with this, okay? A lot of people say, we've always wanted to do it. Just do it. Pick up the phone right now, 601-416-8075. Do it today for yourself. Stop putting it off. And if you want to be in the first phase, you better move quickly. Only a handful of houses left in that first phase. And then they're going to begin construction on second phase, here in a couple months. And so if you want to ensure that you go ahead and get settled and then you can be here for the summer, be here for the College World Series, whatever, you can go and do it now. And that way, too, you get things lined up. And maybe you don't want to move the kids until after the school year. That's cool, too. But, you can go ahead and begin doing your due diligence now. Listen, it's already March 24th, right? So before you know it, in less than 2 months, kids are going to be out of school. And you're going to be ready to move. So make Portico your next move. All right, let's talk a little baseball. We mentioned North Alabama was set to play Mississippi State on Tuesday. They pushed the game back. And for the first time in forever, the meteorologists at Mississippi State were wrong. We could have played the game, probably should have played the game. Now we're set to play on Wednesday, and listen, the forecast doesn't look great. Now, Mississippi State has announced that they're going to make a decision about first pitch by 10 a.m. tomorrow or today. So that way you guys won't all jump in the car, after lunch and we'll come racing up here only to find out that we're going to play earlier or not going to play at all. So looking at the forecast that continues to kind of change hourly. So let me back up here. So there's not supposed to be, the chances for rain have diminished tremendously for Wednesday. I forget what day it is. I'm recording this today, and it's Wednesday. But looking at these, it's clear in Starkville now, and so it was expected to rain most of the day. Now the rain's not supposed to start until around 8 p.m. So what that means is we may have an earlier start date, or by the time you guys hear this show, maybe those chances for rain at 8, 9 o'clock have somewhat diminished or have left our area. I won't be the least bit surprised if we don't move this thing up to 4 o'clock. That's kind of the Chris Lamona special in the midweek. It's like, let's play at 4 and kind of get it in. So be advised, kind of be weather aware, and kind of keep up with what's going on with your Mississippi State social media. There's a lot of people out there that are not employed by the university that are involved in these Facebook groups that do a great job kind of communicating information. So as they get the emails that perhaps you're not getting, they go post them in those groups. Or if they get a tweet or something like that, they put it out there. And of course at Gene's page, we're going to have the latest and all that stuff too. So the information, my point is going to be readily available to you. But don't get up in the morning and think, hey, the ball game is going to be at 6 and never look again, because their chances are there's going to be some shifting around with that. I'd be fine for us playing at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever. I just want to get the game in. Mikey Tepper expected to start for Mississippi State to make his first college start. He has pitched a couple times for us. Excited about him, and it's going to be a Johnny Holstaff day, which is what these midweek games are for. North Alabama is absolutely dreadful. They are 1-16 on the year, and I'll run down their schedule for you here real quick before we kind of move on. It is ridiculous to look how bad these guys have been. So North Al, the Golden Lions, I guess is who they are. They've lost 10 games in a row. They begin the year losing to Belmont. They lose 4 games to Stetson. They lose to Tennessee Tech, who is dreadful this year. They steal 1 from Arkansas Little Rock Friday night game in Florence. How about that? And then they lose the next 2, 9-1, 10-3. Then they lose to UT Martin. They lose 3 to Liberty. They didn't score a single run against Liberty in a 3-game series out there in Lynchburg. They lose to Tennessee Tech again, 18-4. And then they lose this past weekend all 3 games to Bellarmine. You may recall Bellarmine split a 4-game set with Eastern Michigan the weekend before they played us. And so this is a team that is not good. This is a team that has struggled to score runs. They've struggled to keep people from scoring. Real quickly looking at some numbers here. They have 1 player that is batting above 300. 1 player on the entire roster, and his name is Devney Daniel. Devney Daniel has played in all 17 games, leads the team with 18 hits, leads it with 4 doubles and a couple of home runs and 4 RBIs, all of those team highs. And you begin to think about that. Those are team highs on a team that's won 1 game. He is a 6'1", 225 junior third baseman out of Warrior, Alabama. Probably feels like the lone warrior on this team. To kind of put it in perspective here, we talked about they have 1 guy batting over 300. They've only got 3 guys batting over 200. They're batting 164 as a team. I mean, these guys, you could probably go out and get 9 students out of the student section at Mississippi State and win this ball game. I mean, these are guys that are really, really struggling to do anything. On the pitching side of things, the numbers aren't any better. As a team, the ERA 6.99. Let's let that marinate for a second there. They have allowed 16 home runs, 5 triples, 36 doubles. They've struck out 129 and walked 92. Awful, awful numbers. Opponents are hitting 293 against them. They're not holding runners. They're throwing 20 wild pitches, 18 hit by pitches. They've had 5 balks. It's just not been a good year over in Florence. And it won't be a good night tomorrow night. And listen, people say, you know what, Steve, it's going to hurt us in the RPI. It's true, but we got to get these games in. And so if we don't play them, who are we going to pick up? Not really anybody. There's not anybody out there that we're going to be able to get. Listen, I get it. They're a 1-16 team. We got to get some work for some guys before we get ready to play Arkansas. So when we come back on Friday, we're going to preview the Arkansas series. Before we get out the door today, I do want to take a quick look around the league. You had a couple games in the SEC canceled on Tuesday. The Riverwalk Stadium Showdown, I guess is what they're calling it, Auburn and South Alabama, that has been postponed. Probably good for Auburn, who is now 11-8. I think South Al is good enough to beat them. LSU and Tulane is canceled. I would like to have seen that game played, to be honest with you. That game was canceled as well. So the games that were played, Southern Miss takes down Alabama in Tuscaloosa 5-4. Good news there, right? I think that Southern Miss win is going to help us. We're going to beat Alabama too, but I think Southern Miss is going to live up to their preseason billing. Georgia, who we don't play, took down Kennesaw State in 10 innings, 3-2. And that's kind of a consistent theme with the Georgia Bulldogs. It's just they just struggle to score. They've got really good pitching. Scott Strickland always will have good pitching at Georgia, but they are really not a team that's going to put points on the board. We don't play them this year. It'd be nice to draw them in Hoover. Kentucky gets by Butler 6-5. Nick Mingione got the Wildcats 14-4. They let one get away on Sunday. Should have swept Mizzou, had the lead in the 7th and let it get away from them. But the Wildcats 13 hits, 6 runs tonight against Butler, and 14-4. And we'll see them next weekend. Tennessee beats up on Eastern Kentucky 13-5. Tennessee now 18-4. I'm not sure how good they are, but they're a good team. It'd be nice if they could take a game or two from some teams that will help us. South Carolina bounced back after a rough weekend with an 8-3 win over the Citadel. Mississippi State will play the Citadel the same week they play South Carolina. So we'll play the Citadel on Wednesday, have Thursday off, and then play Friday, Saturday, Sunday there in Columbia. Arkansas, apparently still mad after the weekend, destroys Memphis 14-1. The Tigers managed just 3 hits. Arkansas pound out 13. Ole Miss gets by Central Arkansas, and that, to be expected, 5-2, and then 8 hits to 5 over there. Ole Miss committed a couple of errors there, but Ole Miss finds a way to win that one. Rice takes down Texas A&M. I'm really starting to get worried about the Aggies. They got absolutely shelled last weekend by Florida. They lose the midweek game. They had won 11 in a row, and now all of a sudden they've hit a rough patch. And you knew when you get into SEC play, things are going to get a little bit tougher for them. But you start dropping these midweek games. In addition to that, those are the things that get you fired. I could see A&M making a change at the end of the year. I mean, I really could. Vanderbilt gets by Lipscomb 11-3. Yeah, and it's people always talk about, Steve, State plays, these SWAC schools and everything else. Let's go look at Vandy's non-conference schedule and get back to me. They're not playing anybody better than us. All right, so that's a look around the league. And Friday we'll preview the league and kind of see who's doing what and who's going where. It's not separation Saturday just yet, if you know what I'm saying. But I think after this weekend we'll kind of have an idea of who's really bad. I think there'll still be a lot of teams that are pretty good and some that are really good. But I think after this weekend, we're going to see that some of these teams that are going to struggle most of the year will struggle. There's not a lot of teams that can turn it around like State did in 2018. You get 5-6 games out of first after a couple of weekends, you're going to have to struggle to get to Hoover. It's as simple as that. So we'll see how things progress. But, again, I love this time of year. I know you guys do as well. Excited to get back out to the ballpark on Wednesday. Ready to see the Bulldogs play again. As soon as we get done, I'm ready to go. I joked with somebody over the weekend, I guess on Monday. Again, the week's getting away from me. But this time of year, I could live on the road. I absolutely could. Because as soon as the Bulldogs get done, you get back to the hotel, you get your story written, you grab something to eat, you kind of get caught up on your rest. I'm ready to go again. I'm ready to – that's the best thing about baseball. It's like you play sometimes 4 and 5 days a week. And so it's easy to keep your interest. Football is one of those things we play on Saturday and we spend the whole week wishing it was Saturday. Like planning our trip back down here. But you know what, man? If I didn't have to come home, I wouldn't. I honestly wouldn't. I would live off a debit card, live in hotels. I'd be just as happy to do that and go to Cracker Barrel every day and just stay out on the road. It just simply wouldn't bother me, especially during baseball season. It's so great to be able to get out and go watch the Bulldogs play, and sometimes you got to come home and get the mail and pay bills. But road baseball, that's the thing. When I did it a couple of years ago, I didn't realize how much fun I was going to have. I had done a couple of road series before, but I really committed myself the year that Jake was chasing the record at 19, that as long as Jake was chasing something and the team was chasing something, I was going to stay out on the road with him. And when the year was over, I told the people that I loved the most, I said, you know what, this has been the most fun that I've had outside of watching my own kid play. Probably the funnest spring and summer I ever had was 2013 when Ani was graduating. Of course, State was going to Omaha, and Ani was playing for the Mississippi Stars and also playing in the Cotton States League, and he was getting ready to go play, college baseball. And so that was probably the funnest summer I ever had. But number two was 2019. I got a chance to go to Omaha, watch the Bulldogs play, and I'd never been to Omaha before. And I just thought, why would I deny myself this joy? The joy of being out there on the road and covering the team and bringing our story home to you guys and seeing it all firsthand. I know they've made it a lot easier this year with all the virtual stuff and all these games are streamed, but there's nothing like being there. And I commend Mississippi State, too, for not doing the post-game Zoom, because I think the people that make the commitment to actually go to the games should have the opportunity to have some exclusive content. And so I appreciate that, and I commend them for that decision, and we're going to do our best to get out there and cover every game. It's important. It's important because we are a baseball school. If you haven't done so, go to alphadogsthebook.com, and you can get personalized copies of Alpha Dogs, Stark Villains, and Flim Flam. And if you're looking for Stark Villains gear, and you should be, there's a bunch of those shirts popping up on Sundays at Duty Noble Field, people wearing their black and white Stark Villain shirts, and thank you for doing that. If you want one of those, go to starkvillains.com, and you can order it today. I talked to Jason earlier in the week. I know some people had ordered. They had run out of shirts, and so they had to get some more shirts in. So expect to see more of the Stark Villain shirts, and thank you guys so much for wearing them. I love the title of that book. Matter of fact, I'm wearing a Stark Villain shirt right now. And so look forward to seeing more of you guys out there and about. And listen, the ticket situation is better. And it seems like no matter what we do or how many more tickets that they make available, people are still griping about it. Listen, I need tickets. I got family coming in, and I need 4 tickets for the grandstand this weekend. My grandbaby's coming to town. She's 2 and 1 as a Bulldog fan. She went to Arlington and watched us win, and so I think she's a good luck charm. So I got to get her and her family into the grandstand this weekend. So if you got tickets, let me know. I'll pay you for them. I don't expect you to give me anything. I'll pay you for them. I just need to be able to get that family in here. I know a lot of you guys are kind of like me, and the people I've had no less than 24 people reach out to me and say, Steve, I need this, need that. I need a couple tickets for the weekend. If you are a Bulldog fan that has tickets and you are not going to be able to make the game, please, please, please get those tickets in the hand of Bulldog fans. There are plenty of people out there looking for those tickets that will pay you for them. And let's not be price gougers either. It's ridiculous. I see some of these prices on StubHub are ridiculous. But we need a packed house this weekend as much as we can get in there. It's a big weekend for Mississippi State. And listen, last 2 times Arkansas is coming here, we swept them. And so wouldn't it be great to do that then? That's the thing. You win this series against Arkansas, it's a good chance you're number 1 in the country next week. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.
Spring into Lowe's and plant the seeds of possibility. With premium mulch for just $3.68 a bag and Stay Green 1 cubic foot garden soil just $4.28 a bag, you'll grow possibilities right from the ground, like skipping the grocery store because your yard grew the whole salad. And it grew you tulips, too. Oh, yard, you shouldn't have. Visit your local Lowe's or shop online at Lowes.com. Lowe's, home to any budget, home to any possibility. While supplies last, mulch offer in-store only. Selection and offer availability varies by location. Offers valid through 3/10, U.S. only. Excludes Hawaii.
At Zenni, we believe everyone deserves access to high-quality, affordable eyewear. That's why we offer stylish prescription glasses for men, women, and kids starting at just $6.95. Our online factory direct model cuts out the middlemen, so you save. At Zenni, you get the same quality frame and lens options that you'd get from an optician for 1/10 of the price, including blue blockers, progressives, prescription sunglasses, and more. The best part? Try on any frame, anywhere with our 3D virtual try-on. Zenni.com. Eyewear for everyone.